Hello once again. Today it's all about stitching, interlining with a machine so that you can put it in your curtains. Now, I've received an email from a subscriber, and I'll call no name, but I will call her Miss P. So the question was, is it okay for you to stitch the interlining together by machine before you put it into your curtain? Now, as much as I've tried doing that, because I like to take shortcuts, I find it's a bit bulky. There's so many ways you can try and do it just to cut down on time. I don't do it because in the long run I'm not pleased with it. But you can. But you have to use a blanket stitch. Now, I've tried putting fabric together where I put one on top of the other and just stitched all the way down with the machine. But what happens when you do that is the fabric stretches. So leave it out. I don't do that. And at times, when you use the overlocker as well, it sometimes stretches it as well. So you have to be very careful. But it's much better using the overlocker. You can't stitch it normally like that, seam to seam, and then open it, press it open, because that's too bulky, especially with this, it's thick already. So you can't do that. So you shouldn't accept a curtain that's made in that way. So what I've done for you is I've done some samples, and here you will see that's an overlocking stitch. Let's get the camera to focus for a minute. That's an over, which is a 4-threader overlocker, and you can see it's got the stitching to hold it nice and tight. Now you can't use this stitch because what you need to do is after you've overlocked it is you've got to pull it apart to open it. And as you can see with this, it won't open because it's so tight, because that main stitching, which takes over for the flat machine, is made it nice and tight. So, and therefore, if you can see, the stitching of the overlocking is protruding outwards going that way. So it's not flat. So you can't use four threads to do this. Okay, so we'll eliminate this one. So I've done that to show you this. So let's put that aside. And then I did this one here, which you can see is very messy. And what I did is I took away that stitch at the edge of this one, which is the needle on the outside to the left. I took away the cotton from that needle and did it that way, but it's very untidy. And the other two, which I'll show you a video that I did, I loosen it as much as I can. Now this one, now you have to pull this aside, pull it, and as you can see, it is pulling apart, but it's not working. This is still sticking out because you need this to be nice and flat, because some fabric, your main fabric, it will kind of imprint on it, and that wouldn't look good. So that one doesn't work. Then let me see. Then I moved the needle, the cotton from the other needle. And I'll show you anyway. And which one was it? And it worked. So it wasn't that one. Yeah, here it is. So here you can see the gap is more. So let's pull. Can you imagine sewing a big long curtain and having to do this all the way down? It's too much work. It really is. So that's why I don't bother. I just hand stitch it. Right, so can you see it's opened up? You have to make the cotton as loose as possible, and you can see that is almost flat, and you have to keep doing that. But when you use a proper blanket stitch, it's much more easier. And you find that domestic machine has it there. So is that for your father? Okay. So I wouldn't use it because the time it takes me to stitch all that, I might as well just quickly do that stitching all the way down, which is a herringbone stitch, I think, or blanket stitch. But that is acceptable. Can you see it? It's almost flat. But look at this little small piece that I've done, and look at the workmanship, the hardness I've got to do to open all this up. I wouldn't bother. Okay? So it all depends on how it looks if somebody was to give you a job and it's stitched the wrong way and it shows through the fabric, then no, don't accept it. But that you can, a blanket stitch you can. I hope that answers your question. I know I asked you to send me a picture, but seeing as you've said that it was only Mrs. P I'm talking to, or anybody else that's in this situation, seeing as it was one joining on each side, that in fact it's not a joining, it's just one section of curtain and there's no seam allowance, and she's overlocked the interlining to the edge of the curtains at either end and then turn it back on itself. Let's put it this way. Here's the edge of the curtain, and this is the main fabric and this is the interlining, and she's overlocked it there. And then what she should do next is turn it in like that and hand stitch this down. If that's what she's done, yeah, that's acceptable. That's good. Yeah, that is extra work in actual fact, because I wouldn't bother, because the fact that you just put it in and just hand stitch it down, it's not going to show. So she's made more work for herself if that's what she's done. So let me turn this way. So at the side of each curtains, they're turned in like that. Here we have the dials on my sewing machine. This is an industrial one. But when you're using a domestic one, which some people do, they have one that says a blanket stitch. So I've got to imitate it. So what I've done is, hold on, let me take this away. So what I've done here is I've done several testing, and one of them is the main one. Okay, let's go to the machine. So what I did is first I eliminated this thread. So this is the one that's out at the moment. So I've taken it away from my double needle, and I've taken this one, which is remaining, which is the stitching. I've taken this one and I've taken it out of its case here to get this stitch as loose as possible. So it's going behind, running free, and it's in that needle. And I've made these two here, which is these two here, very weak, so that when I pull the fabric sidewards, it opens up. And so far, what I've done here, it's almost flat to become a blanket stitch, and can you see it's opened up to make the fabric lie flat, so that you can put it inside the curtain. So this one is the best one to use if you've got a 4-threader, but that is all right. So I can't show you exactly without, because I haven't got a stand up here. So at least you've got this, and I'll try and explain it again, and I'll take a picture. So here we are. It's an overlocker, and these two are for the needles, and these two is the back. So, and now I've got to adjust everything and put everything back to normal and put that down. So this now, I have taken this away. So now I'm going to put it back so that it has tension. And now I'm going to pull it through, which it's that needle there, the back one. And now, because I'm putting my machine back in order, I'm going to re-thread the needle. And I'll try and do this with one hand, and that will put it back to normal. I'm going to have to put the camera down, but you know, that's needle, and then put everything back to normal, and that'll be fine. So this is how you do a blanket stitch on interlining to lay flat on your fabric. That's if you don't want to hand stitch it like you've seen me done in the past. So that's what it looks like, nice and flat. And there it is. And of course, I would do this with white cotton, but this is so that you can see it. Look at that. This is difficult. That's because I haven't cut it open.